Hey everybody, John the Other here, obviously. And I was going to actually do this combined with my last video, but I realized it needs its own compartment, its own video. And it starts from the observation that I have made, over the years, but lately as well, of corporations changing their logos or changing the color scheme of their logo to match with whatever particular social issue they want to pretend that they care about. And it's always been disingenuous, it's always been deceptive. It's like, oh, we at corporation care about you at people because blah blah blah, social justice, tra la 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 la, and we just want you to not think we're an evil, soulless corporation, which we actually are. We have no particular values except make money, right? It would be so refreshing to see a corporation just say, we want to make the most amount of money, and so that's why we're doing the things we do. Yes, I would give a company like that my money. I would buy their stuff. And this has taken a particularly egregious and really disgusting turn when you see companies like North Face canvassing Facebook to engage in more, not less, censorship, which is like fundamentally evil. Like, if you engage in censorship, you're not doing good, you're doing evil, because speech, even objectionable and obnoxious and rude and even, yes, hateful speech, that is the problem-solving mechanism of the human race. And without it, we have only violence. So you stop people from talking, you leave them only violence as an outlet for the solution of the grievances. So North Face, okay, you're choosing the path of evil. Guess whose product I will not buy? And I am a person who buys a lot of outdoor and mountaineering clothes. Mountain Equipment Co-op is my clothing store. Okay, but of course, getting back to the logo changing. We see rainbow, we support LGBT and different colors. We see green, people changing their logo to green to support the green movement and green energy and all that other bullshit. But now, of course, we see companies coming out explicitly in support of Black Lives Matter, which purports to be an anti-racist movement. It purports to care about police violence against particularly young black men in the black community. But of course, they don't care one single solitary sliver of a bit about black on black violence, which is vastly more predominant. Like, that's the problem. That explicit and protracted and extremely large problem is nowhere mentioned. And then if you go on a Black Lives Matter website, they're outrageously anti-white racist, promoting Marxism, which is a completely evil and murderous doctrine. It's murderous in every single sense of the word, and every single time Marxism has been implemented, it is instantaneously murderous. And yet we have these corporations pretending to care about the surface level rhetoric of Black Lives Matter, ignoring like one layer deep under the skin. Like, all you got to do is actually go to the website and read it, and you see extreme racial hatred. Now, it's not just that Black Lives Matter is anti-white racist. I think they're actually promoting anti-black racism too. Because let's ask the question: if you are able to convince the vast majority of non-black America, which means like white and Asian and every other ethnicity except white, or except black, if you're able to convince them through your public messaging, through your activism and your engagement with media, that all black people are of one mind, which starts out as a racist idea, and that this one mind is murderous, well, you're what, 13% of the population if you look by demographic, and the rest is like 87% of the population. If you convince 87% of the other people in the world, or in your world, that your ethnicity is singularly murderous, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think that's going to increase people's love and acceptance of your differences, or do you think they're going to close their doors and arm themselves and there'll be more violence and more racism? So it seems to me that BLM, for all their public puffery and all the bullshit is trying to create more racial hatred against blacks. In addition to their obviously overt anti-white racism, they're trying to create more anti-black racism by making everybody terrified to their bones of black people. Which, by the way, it's not a monolith. It's a bunch of individual people, for fuck's sakes. So I wanted to remark on that and realize that the truth, what is true, is like it's slipping out of our fingers. And I come back to truth because it's like these corporations engaging in the virtue signaling. There was some plausible deniability when it was just benign things like we believe in the environment. Look, we changed our logo to green, therefore we believe in the environment. Or we changed our logo to a rainbow, therefore we support the rights of LGBT, trans and all that shit. I mean, we know that they don't actually believe in anything because they're corporations. Because the corporation doesn't believe in things. It's a machine for making money. But now that they're claiming that their public value, that, oh, we care, and the thing we're going to pretend to care about is overtly murderous and racist, well, where is truth? Where's the truth now? Like, is that even a thing? So I thought that extremely long-winded and roundabout way of getting to my point is that it's now worthwhile to begin examining public rhetoric for its truth value, starting with some common social justice terminology, and let's figure out what these things mean. Now, I did a video recently asking what was the meaning of the word woke. I'm going to do another term, and this one is diversity. That's a big one, right? Everybody wants more diversity. And it sounds positive, right? And yet, when diversity gets shoved down your throat, or you find that there are diversity policies or diversity value statements that you're supposed to buy into, that you know, in your master's thesis has to say something about how you're promoting diversity. Well, what is it? What is this thing? I realized during editing, I said, this is the best idea I can come up with, and it's not actually my idea. It's an idea that I've heard Jordan Peterson offer. It's his explanation of what diversity means. And absent a better definition, it's the best explanatory one that I can find. And it actually satisfies that little itch in my mind of why I found, and I have always found, this idea of diversity so completely disagreeable. Now, a lot of people say diversity is code for anti-white. I don't think that's a very good answer. Now, there might be an element of truth in that answer, but the thing is, if you have a person who doesn't already exactly share your belief, assuming your belief is that diversity means anti-white, telling them that isn't going to advance their understanding at all. It's probably just going to make them think you're a reactive crank. So I think we need a definition that is more precise and contains more explanatory power of what's underneath that word, the ideology driving it, for us to be able to talk about this intelligently with people who aren't already, you know, exactly on our frame, exactly sharing our viewpoint. And that's the point. Like, I don't need to talk to people who exactly share my viewpoint. They exactly share my viewpoint. I need to talk to people who don't agree, so that we can share, we can understand each other. Great grammar, John. I'm going to leave that in. Understand one another. So, what is diversity? Diversity is a value that starts with the assumption that groups of people by superficial characteristic like skin color or ethnicity or regional dialect or sexuality or sexual identity or any of these other kind of arbitrary biological identity markers, that if you group people by these markers, then one person in that group is representative of all of them. Like one person's viewpoint in the group, the blacks, or the Jews, or the gays, or the whites, or any of these identity categorized groups. Diversity starts with the idea that if you know one person from that group, you know all of them, that they're not individual people, that they're just samples of a representative. And that is fundamentally, that's the underlying idea of racism. So, what is diversity? It's a smooth polish, it's a shine that you put on racism. Now, racism isn't hatred of blacks. Hatred of blacks, or hatred of Asians, or hatred of East Indians, or hatred of white people, those are just particular variations of the broader category racism. Like, oh, they're racist. You might go, well, obviously the guy hates blacks. No, he might not hate blacks. He might hate East Indians, or he might hate Asians, or white people. Like, racism is generally specific. Now, you can have lots of different flavors in one person's viewpoint, but it's not just hatred or dislike or aversion to one specific, ethnic identity. It's hatred of people based on ethnic identity, and then when you get specific, it's anti-black racism or it's anti-white racism. So that's the negative. When we use the word racism, that's taking that concept, the concept that one person in the group, that they are not individual, they're just a sample of the group. If we view that negatively, we call it racism. If we view that positively, we take that exact same concept, that one person in the group is exactly the same as all the others in the group, and therefore I can just view them as a representative of the group. We decide that's a positive thing, we call it diversity. But it's exactly the same thing as racism. It's just, am I going to put a positive, is it a check mark, I like this, or an X, I don't like this? Well, I don't like it. And so I think it's important to identify that when you say diversity, what you're talking about is actually racism, except you've just pretending that it's a good thing, and it's not. Anyway, that's my video, but before I sign off with my usual sign off, I had to edit that because there was a truck going by. Before I sign off, I have a question for you guys. When I buy books, and I buy quite a few, sometimes audiobooks and sometimes physical paper books, one of the places is obviously Amazon. And when I go onto the Amazon bookseller webpage, what I see lately is a whole lot of really grotesquely racist and bigoted titles, which I find very disagreeable. But of course I haven't read these books, and I think maybe it's important that we get the contents of these books out into the open so that they can be picked apart for the garbage that they are. Now, I'm assuming, because obviously I haven't read it. If you guys think it's worth doing that, let me know, and I will do a Indiegogo setting up. I mean, I'm not going to do it if you don't want me to do it. I will set up an Indiegogo that is basically, I will read these books and critique them so you don't have to. Let me know if you think that's worth doing, and then if you don't think so, I won't do it. Anyway, thanks very much for watching, and as always, have a lovely, lovely day.